It's really in the consumer goods that we're seeing a huge uptick in not only the appetite of Australian consumers looking for Australian-made, but also the small businesses starting to pivot into developing more Australian-made product as well. So even in the last couple of weeks, you can look into the news and see companies like Geordie and Julia Kay's manufacturing compostable cling wrap. That type of a product is doing really well. Eco-friendly toilet paper out of a company in northern New South Wales, Bambouli, being produced 100% Australian-made and distributed all over the country. Meal preparation containers out of Katie Lolis's business, creating eco-sustainable meal prep containers that are also manufactured locally. Things like surgical masks are even now starting to hit the market, Australian-made to global standards, a much more ethical supply chain than some of the other countries that we've previously been purchasing from, and priced very well. Those guys are now selling 25,000 masks a month into certain facilities in Melbourne. So in this way, it's quite a broad spread, but we can categorize all of these products as sort of consumer products. The things that you would buy at the supermarket, they're the things that you'd buy at the local shops.
Australian-made products, how important are they to you? Have you gone out of your way to buy them since COVID started? And was there something that triggered you to really go down this path and try and explore it a little bit more? Have you ever wondered, though, does buying Australian-made mean that you might spend more? And would you be willing to do that? In 2020, the federal government, for the first time, legislated that a percentage of goods used by government must be bought locally from Australian suppliers. Why did it take till 2020, you might ask, as I've just done? And since then, Aussies have flocked to them. For more information about this, Steve Eagle is director at howtobuyaustralianmade.com.au. Steve, good evening.
Dennis, wonderful to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
It's going to be interesting just to find out a little bit more about this, because I think in our hearts we all want to buy something that's locally made, if possible. I think many people lament the fact that our automotive industry has gone, but there are lots of things we can try and buy. Are people still flocking to buy Aussie-made?
Yes, they absolutely are. And you're right, in 2020, there was a real shift in the mind of the consumer and the approach to how we look at Australian-made products and what that means when we're spending our money at the supermarkets or in the retail shops or even online, and who benefits from that. Now, it was measured before the coronavirus pandemic that 87% of consumers were looking for Australian-made products. And over last year, we saw that grow from 87% to 93%. So a significant shift. And what this tells us is that Australians are looking now at the country of origin of the product that they're buying. And I think a lot of this has got to do with what we've seen happen over the last year in terms of supply chain, get choked by the political conversations happening between Australia and China. And also the global response to the coronavirus. I think many governments and many markets around the world have realized that having a sovereign capability of manufacturing and some local supply chain support is absolutely an essential part of being a healthy country, especially when we see the world change as it has and all these things become much harder to deal internationally and do international trade. So the writing's really sort of obvious to people in my circles that Australian-made is doing really well at the moment.
I want to put it out to listeners. Do you go out of your way to buy Aussie-made, and what do you buy? What do you particularly buy that is Australian-made? Steve, what type of products have sort of had a bit of a surge?
It's really in the consumer goods that we're seeing a huge uptick in not only the appetite of Australian consumers looking for Australian-made, but also the small businesses starting to pivot into developing more Australian-made product as well. So even in the last couple of weeks, you can look into the news and see companies like Geordie and Julia Kay's manufacturing compostable cling wrap. That type of a product is doing really well. Eco-friendly toilet paper out of a company in northern New South Wales, Bambouli, being produced 100% Australian-made and distributed all over the country. Meal preparation containers out of Katie Lowlis's business, creating eco-sustainable meal prep containers that are also manufactured locally. Things like surgical masks are even now starting to hit the market, Australian-made to global standards, a much more ethical supply chain than some of the other countries that we've previously been purchasing from, and priced very well. Those guys are now selling 25,000 masks a month into certain facilities in Melbourne. So in this way, it's quite a broad spread, but we can categorize all of these products as sort of consumer products. That's the things that you would buy at the supermarket. They're the things that you'd buy at the local shops.
The cost is really probably an important thing, but you're telling me it's not going to cost that much more to buy Aussie-made. And certainly as a consumer, if you want to feel a bit better about what you're buying, you know, if you're supporting Australians in Hobart or Cairns or Ballarat, surely that is what we should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Australia's manufacturing footprint, I mean, there's two things here that are sort of myths, and that is, one is when the automotive companies left Australia, we stopped making anything, right? That's just completely wrong. There are still over 90,000 manufacturers in Australia. They're making all sorts of things, from solar panels to really high-tech space equipment, including rocket boosters, all the way through to some of the products I mentioned just before. So the manufacturing is absolutely still alive in Australia, and it's a small and medium-sized manufacturers who basically run the Australian economy. Over two-thirds of the Australian economy is solely, created by these businesses and their activity. So on that side of things, it's quite clear that manufacturing is still alive and well. On the other side of your question, it's what is the cost of that? How do we actually pay for it? And are we getting a fair price when we're buying Australian-made? Now, you hear this bantied around all the time that Australia is a high-cost wage country, therefore our products are more expensive. But if you actually look at this, and I do my own research in my businesses, but it's also been researched by the Australian Institute as well, the total difference in the cost of a product, whether it's made in a very cheap labour market like maybe India or China versus one that's made in Australia with our current labour rates, the total difference in the pricing is averaged at about 13%. On a like-for-like product. So whether it's made in Asia or made in Australia, the only difference would be about 13% based on that labour factor. The other money that you're paying into those goods are really value-added things like better quality raw materials, a more ethical supply chain, knowing that the workers who built that product are actually being looked after and following the law, knowing that the brand that you're buying is a genuine product and not a counterfeit of something like that. So it's very good reasons why we pay that money. If you look at the result of doing that, what happens when we spend more money with Australian businesses? If each household in Australia...
employ more people.
You're right, we do. If each household in Australia simply transitioned $50 a week of their existing grocery spend from a product bought in other countries to product bought in Australia, that will generate 30,000 jobs a year. So there is a direct impact that each Australian can have, and it's a positive impact. The consumer also benefits from this. If you buy a high-quality Australian product, over the lifetime of that product, it's measured you'll save about 70%. You'll spend 2 or 3 times more buying counterfeit products or cheap Asian goods or something like this. You'll buy 3 or 4 of them in the same lifetime that you would buy a single Australian-made solution for the same problem. And in that way, you'll actually save money in the long term by doing Australian-made as well. So no matter which way you dissect this, it's really clear that buying Australian-made is smart. It's a good decision, and it's a fantastic thing for Australians to do. It supports our economy and supports everyday Australians like you and I to do a better job.
Steve, tomorrow when people go shopping, or they're planning to go shopping online, or they're going to go to their supermarket and do a weekend shop, how do we get them, or how do they look for Aussie-made, say, at the supermarket?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's the classic indicator of an Australian-made good would be the Australian-made logo, the old green and gold kangaroo logo that we're so familiar with. I'm not affiliated with that by any means. That's managed by the Australian-made campaign, but they do a great job of actually helping creators of Australian product and producers of Australian goods to identify what exactly in that product is Australian-made. I think consumer behavior as well can take a lesson here as well. Not everything is made in Australia. It's quite normal for Australian producers to have some components that are imported goods or to have some imported packaging or something like this. We need to be realistic around that. We need to be pragmatic about it. It does make sense in quite a lot of cases for Australian made to have some import component. I don't think that's a reason not to buy it. Where we can find a higher percentage of Australian made in a product, that's a good thing. We should support that. In terms of how to find it in the supermarket, you can also ask at the desk, show me your Australian made goods. In last year, quite a few supermarkets, Woolworths included, were discussing having an Australian made aisle put into some of their locations, and that's happened in some places. But I think this is a really healthy thing for us to do. We have an international aisle in the supermarket that shows us where the pasta is and the other wonderful international goods that we enjoy. Why not have the same thing for Australian-made product? I think it's an obvious thing that most supermarkets and retailers around Australia should be looking at.
If people want to find out more, go to How to Buy Australian Made, howtobuyaustralianmade.com.au. Director Steve Eagle, thanks for coming on the program.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dennis.
If you're interested in what you just heard, then check out our website at howtobuyaustralianmade.com.au to find out more.